Hallo almal, dis juffrou Nagel en vandag doen ons by die robot in Eerstelaan deur Marita van Aswegen. It says like at the robot in Eerstelaan, gebeure by 'n spesifieke robot, maar dit kan op ander plekke ook gebeur. So in this poem, what is happening at this specific traffic light, okay? But situations like this can happen almost anywhere, not just at traffic lights, any other place. Something similar can happen. You know, what is happening in this poem can happen somewhere else. And then just go back to the title. So in die gedig, letterlik, die blinde man en 'n skelm staan by die verkeerslig. So in this poem, literally, like it says, yeah, at the traffic light in Eerstelaan, there is a blind man and a skelm, they call him the tsotsi in the poem, that is standing at a traffic light and begging. Maar figuurlik, figuratively, die blinde man tree soos 'n robot op, het nie beheer oor homself nie, word deur ander gemanipuleer. So it says what it figuratively could mean is that, you know, instead of saying verkeerslig, the poet actively chose to use the word 'n robot. Okay? So figuratively what this can refer to is that the blind man is almost acting like a robot. In other words, like he doesn't really have control over himself. He's being controlled by other people. And in this case, he's also being manipulated by other people, or specifically by the tsotsi. So this is the poem. So I've indicated some of the alliteratie with the blue, the assonantie with the green, and then you'll see I highlighted all the ends, well, majority of the ends, and that is because it's polis and diaton, and we'll add something to that now. But as I'm reading the poem, listen to the rhyme scheme, listen to like all the alliteration and assonance, and also listen to enjambement if there is any. Twee pare voete girts oor die teer. Sy arm en nek is so styf en seer. Sy bene so lam van gister se staan. Ingehaak volg hy gedwee waar hulle gaan. Motor se bande knars tot stilstand. In die blikkie klingel 5 sent en 'n rand. Hy ry die vis en chips winkel van Eerstelaan hier by die robot waar hy die dag omstaan. Sy arm word gepluk en geruk en hy skrik toe sy voet oor 'n pyp eenkant toe swik. Ons beter geld kry of ek los jou hier. Sis die tsotsi en sy asem ruik na bier. Sy hart klop vinnig soos die van 'n bang kind. Hoe sal hy weer sy lêplek van hier af kan vind? Die verkeerslig klik en die engines brul saam. Sy dowwe oë bewend opwaarts geslaan. Tring tring lui 'n fiets se klokkie. Hy buig af en trek aan sy stikkende sokkie. Die verkeerslig klik en die bande skuur oor die teer. Sy arm en skouer is so styf en seer. 'n Motorry cheer af en ver weg dreun 'n bus. As die dood hom tog net wil kom haal, dan kan hy vir ewig en altyd rus. Die tsotsi skraap sy keel en spoeg 'n straal. Geld klingel in die blikkie en lê dan stil. Die duwe koer en 'n kindjie heel. Mammie, hy is blind, piep 'n dogtertjie sag. Hy draai sy kop skuins en hy wag. Hier is nog 10 rand, sê die vrou. Koop vir jou iets om aan te kou. Die verkeerslig klik en hy hou aan met wag. Die tsotsi pluk hom aan sy seer arm en lag. So rhyme schema, so the rhyme scheme for the whole poem is gebroke rym because strofe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 en 8 is paarrym. So the stanzas 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 and 8 is paarrym, which is A, A, B, B. And strophe 6, stanza 6 is kruisrym, which is A, B, A, B. Okay, so that is why the whole poem is gebroke rym, because although there is like sort of a rhyme scheme throughout, it's broken. It's not one set rhyme scheme throughout the whole poem. And then die funksie van die rhyme schema, so the function of the rhyme scheme. Beeld die blinde se daaglikse bedelroetine uit, hy kan nie ontsnap nie. So what the possible figurative like meaning of this rhyme scheme could be is that it's sort of the same except for one stanza, which can indicate that, you know, this blind man's routine, daily routine basically stays the same. Every day he does exactly the same thing and it doesn't actually change. Dan typografie, so typography is like what the poem essentially looks like. So uiterlike bou, so what it looks like on the outside. 8 strofes, 4 versreels elk kwatryn. So it has 8 stanzas and each stanza has 4 lines. Okay, en dan innerlike bou, so inside the poem, what happens there? Daar is progressie. Skep vir ons die prentjie van hoe die dag verloop en die atmosfeer word deur die progressie en sintuiglike waarnemings geskep. So it just says there is progression. It basically starts with the beginning of the day and how the day sort of goes on. It shows us the beginning routine. It shows us how the day goes. And also what happens in this poem, and it's something we'll go through as well, is that like the atmosphere in this poem is being created by like the progression that we find in this poem, and then also the senses being used. So because this man is blind, we get like a strong explanation of how he sort of uses his other senses to make sense of what's going on around him. And then the polysyndeton, so this is all the I don't even know if that's the plural, but yeah, all the ends that are highlighted in yellow. So polysyndeton, remember, is basically the repetition of N, K. Not just like randomly, it has to be like, it sort of shows that one action leads to another. So in strofe 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 dui op die blinde man se onskuld en dat die een aksie tot die volgende een lei. So the polysyndeton in those stanzas, it sort of like indicates towards the blind man's innocence, and that one action leads to another. It could also possibly go back to like the sort of routine thing, saying this happens, then this happens, and that happens, and that happens. So in die gedig het ons te doen met 'n universele probleem, armoede en mense wat ander misbruik. So just says in this poem we have to do with a universal problem. The problem is not beggars. The problem is poverty. Okay, the reason people beg is because of poverty. And also then mense wat ander misbruik, people who abuse other people, whether it be like physically or emotionally, or also just people using other people for their own gain. Twee bare voete gids oor die teer, so it says 2 pairs of feet drags across the tar. So twee bare voete is sy nek toe gee. Een gedeelte stel 'n geheel voor, praat van twee mense, die bedelaar en die tsotsie. So sy nek toe gee is when like one small part represents like a whole. So in this case, it's not just 2 pairs of feet that's walking on the tar, it's obviously connected to 2 bodies. So it just says here in this case, in this poem, we're talking about 2 people, and it is the beggar, the blind beggar, and the tsotsi. So gids is klanknabootsing, skiergeluid. So it's klanknabootsing, onomatopoeia. It's sort of like the dragging sound. Like, you know, when you drag your feet on tar, it makes like a different sound because of all the little bumps and stuff like that. So that's what it's referring to. Sy arm en nek is so styf en seer, sy bene so lam van gister se staan. So it says his arm and neck is so stiff and sore, his legs are so weak from yesterday's standing. So seer van blikskit van die vorige dag. So this is where we get the indication that this is not the first time this blind man has begged. It happened yesterday, it's probably happened before, and it just says here that his body's really sore, and his legs are sore from the previous day's begging. Ingehaak volg hy gedwee waar hulle gaan. So this just means like he's sort of hooked in, like their arms are maybe hooked in, him and the tsotsi, and he follows submissively where they go. So gedwee means submissive. Die persoon wat die blinde man lei, die tsotsi het geen genade nie. So it just says like the person who's sort of leading the blind man in this poem, the tsotsi, doesn't really have any like compassion, doesn't really care that the blind man's body is sore. He just continues, and the blind man just has to follow because he's hooked into the tsotsi. Motor se bande knars tot stilstand. So it just said like cars, tires halt to a still stand. That didn't make sense, but you understand what I'm saying. So knars is so klanknabootsing, stop vinnig, die klank van die bande. So it's also onomatopoeia, and it just means like the cars are stopping quickly. And you know, like that sound that cars make, like that screeching sound that cars make when they actually stop really quickly on the tar, that's what it refers to. Stilstand, die verkeerslig / robot word rooi, so the traffic light is red, that is why the people are stopping. In die blikkie klingel 5 cent en 'n rand. So in the can, there is 5 cents and a rand. So klingel, klanknabootsing, die geluid wat geld maak wanneer hy die blikskip moet bedel. So this just refers to klanknabootsing, onomatopoeia, because it refers to the sound that the coins are making in the tin can that he's shaking while he's begging. So 5 cent en 'n rand, gehoorsintuig. Mense gee klein geld, maar as hulle note gee, sal die blinde man dit nie hoor in die blik nie. So it just says here, there might be other money in this like tin container, we don't know, but it's emphasizing the hearing sense within this poem. Remember, we're dealing with a blind man, and this means that he can hear the sound of the coins. If people were to add in notes, he probably wouldn't hear the sound that it made because it wouldn't be really loud, as opposed to coins. Hy ruik die fish and chips winkel van Eerstelaan, so he smells the fish and chips shop of Eerstelaan, so ruik. suggereer dat hy honger is, reuksintuig. So this could possibly suggest that he's hungry, because he begs there the whole time. And it also emphasizes the smelling sense, is that what you call it? So yeah, it's emphasizing that obviously because he's blind, he can't see the shop, but he can smell it. Hier by die robot waar hy die dag omstaan. So yeah, at the traffic light where he stands the whole day. So dag omstaan, hy staan die hele dag daar, waarskynlik sonder kos. So he stands at the traffic light from like the morning to a little bit later on in the afternoon. He stands there the whole day, okay, and possibly the whole time without any food. Sy arm word gepluk en geruk en hy skrik. So it just says his arm is being like pulled and shoved and he gets a fright. So dis polysyndeton, beklemtoon hoe rof die man behandel word. So the NN is polysyndeton and it's emphasizing how like harsh this man is being treated by the Tsotsi. Toe sy voet oor 'n pyp een kant toe swik. So he gets a fright because he sort of rolls his ankle when he sort of falls over a pipe or almost falls over a pipe that is in the road. So omdat hy blind is, struikel hy oor goed in die pad. As iemand nie vir hom sê om versigtig te wees nie, gaan hy nie weet waar of waarop hy trap nie. So it just says here that, because the man is blind, he will, like maybe fall over things that are in the road if no one tells him that it's there. So this Tsotsi that is leading him is not actually helping him. He doesn't tell him, look out for that pipe that is in the road, you're going to step on it and possibly hurt yourself. This Tsotsi that's leading him is not telling him that. Ons beter geld kry of ek los jou hier. So these are direct words. It says we better get money or I'll leave you here. Direkte woorde, dreigement. Die Tsotsi sê dat hy die blinde man nie terug sal vat na sy slaapplek nie. So these are the direct words of the Tsotsi, okay? And it's a threat. A dreigement is a threat. And it just says that the Tsotsi says that he will not take the blind man back to where he sleeps if they don't get any money. Sis die Tsotsi en sy asem ruik na bier. So hisses the Tsotsi and his breath smells like beer. So sis, klank na bootsing. Klank wat 'n slang maak, beklemtoon hoe skelm en gevaarlik die Tsotsi is. So here it says like sis, hiss is basically the sound a snake makes. It was chosen purposely because it sort of just emphasizes how sneaky and dangerous the Tsotsi is. Obviously within poems or a lot of times like within stories when we use snakes, they're usually like the bad ones, if that makes sense. So sis was chosen purposely here to say that the Tsotsi is not a good person. Gaan waarskynlik die meeste van die geld vat en op drank gebruik. So because they say here that the Tsotsi's breath smells like beer, there is a possibility that we can assume that the Tsotsi will take majority of the money and possibly not use it on food or something else, but possibly use it on alcohol. Sy hart klop vinnig soos die van 'n bankkind. So his heart beats fast like that of a scared child. So vergelyking, bang hy gaan nie by sy slaapplek aankom nie. So the blind man is scared, okay? He's scared like a small child because he's scared that he's not going to get back to the place where he sleeps. Hoe sal hy weer sy lêplek van hier af kan vind? So here we like get the reason why he's so scared. How will he find the place that he sleeps from where he is right now? 'n retoriese vraag. So it's a possible like rhetorical question. Hy sal nie noodwendig op sy eie kan nie. Hy kort iemand se hulp. So it just says he probably won't be able to. Like we don't actually know that. We don't know if somehow maybe without any help this blind man will be able to get back to like where he sleeps. We don't know if he won't get back there on his own or if no one's going to help him. So we don't really know the answer to this. But we do know that the Tsotsi feels like this will not happen. Like if he doesn't have someone to help him get back to where he sleeps, it won't happen. So hierdie dui ook op sy armoede. Hy praat van 'n lêplek in die huis nie. So this also indicates back to like the poverty, which is like the universal problem we have to deal with in this poem. Because instead of saying like taking me back to a house, it says taking me back to a place to sleep. So it's just like a small place to sleep. It's not a house, it's not an enclosed space. Die verkeerslig klik en die engines brul saam. So the traffic light clicks and the engines roar together. So klik, klank na bootsing, gehoorsintuig van iemand wat blind is gewoonlik baie fyn. So klik is just klank na bootsing onomatopoeia. It's basically the sound the traffic light makes when it changes lights. If you've ever maybe stood under a traffic light or close to a traffic light, not in your car, you won't be able to hear that. I feel like I've heard this before, where you actually can hear a sound that the traffic light makes when it changes lights. But it also just says you're obviously hearing that your hearing sense must be like very, very, very sharp. Okay, and usually with someone who is blind, they would use their other senses, and their other senses would be really sharp. Engines brul saam, so klanknabootsing, so brul is onomatopoeia. Motors begin beweeg groen lig. It just says like the engines, like they start going again, so it's making noise. Sy dowwe oë bewend opwaarts geslaan. So his, I don't know how to explain doof. It's just basically like, is no color. It's sort of like gray. Okay, so sort of like his gray eyes are like turning upwards. So dowwe oë, like doof, grys, blind en bid moontlik vir hulp. So it just says the doof just means like his eyes, it looks gray. It looks like there's no color in his eyes. Like, you know, like where some of us would have brown, blue, or green eyes, there's like just gray. It's gray. And this obviously indicates to him being blind. And with his eyes being like turning upwards, it could possibly indicate to the fact that he's praying. So at this point where the cars actually stopped, he didn't get any money. And remember the Toti gave him the threat that if we don't get money, I'll leave you here. So he could possibly just be praying and saying like, please, I just need to get some money so that I can go back to where I sleep. So this is for the whole stanza. Beskryf die bedelaar se vrees. So here we just get sort of a sense of the beggar's fear, in this case not being taken back to where he usually sleeps. Tring tring lui 'n fietseklokkie. So tring tring rings a bicycle's bell. Klanknabootsing en inversie. Deur die klanknabootsing voor te sit beklemtoon dit die gehoorsintuig. So here we have onomatopoeia and inversie. So inversie is when the normal sense and structures changed around. In this case, they put the onomatopoeia in the beginning, and the reason they did this is to emphasize the hearing sense that has been emphasized so far throughout the whole poem. Hy buig af en trek aan sy stikkende sokkie, so he bends down and he pulls at his like torn sock. Beklemd in armoede, so the torn sock emphasizes poverty. It's possibly the only pair of socks that he actually has. Die verkeerslig klik en die bande skier oor die teer. So it just says the traffic light clicks and the tires screech across the tar. So klik is klanknabootsing. Verkeerslig verander van groen na rooi. So it's onomatopoeia, the traffic light is changing from green to red. Motor stop, rem vinnig of skielik. So here it just says the cars stop quickly and suddenly. Sy arm en skouer is so styf en seer. So his arm and shoulder is so stiff and sore. Herhaling. Ampers herhaling van versdeel 2 beklemtoon die blinde man se fisiese pyn en ongemak. So this is an almost exact repetition of line 2. And what this is doing is it's emphasizing the blind man's physical pain and discomfort. 'n motor ry cheer af en ver weg ry 'n bus. So a car window is opening up and far away you can hear a bus. So 'n motor ry cheer af. Iemand maak hul motorruit oop. Miskien gaan hulle vir hom geld gee. So it just says someone's opening their car window. Maybe this means he's going to get some money. So this goes to cheer and dreen. It's klanknabootsing. Cheer is the sound the window would make when it's opening, and dreen is like the very like hard sound a bus makes when it pulls away. As die dood hom tog net wil kom haal. So it says if death can just come and fetch him. Personifikasie, die blinde man wil doodgaan. So it's personification because it says death is like he wants death to come and fetch him, but this just means that the blind man wants to die. Dan kan hy vir ewig en altyd rus. Then he can rest forever and always. For always and ever. So it's euphemisme. Wil doodgaan maar nie met rus. Die blinde man voel dat hy net rus sal vind wanneer hy doodgaan en nie nou terwyl hy lewe nie. So it's a euphemism because it says, instead of saying like die, it says to rest. And obviously this is also purposely chosen. Okay, the blind man possibly feels that the only time he will actually rest in his life is when he is dead, not when he is alive, because of like the very harsh life that he's experiencing now. So then for line 22 and 23, die blinde man wens om dood te gaan. Hy kan nie meer hierdie moeilike bestaan verduur nie. So the blind man is wishing he has to die because he can't deal with like, you know, the harsh life that he has here on earth. Die Toti skraap sy keel en spoeg gestraal, so the Toti cleans his like throat and spits. Contrast tussen die blinde man se broosheid, 22 en 33 teenoor die krasheid van die totsie. So here we have contrast. Now please just remember that if they ever ask you contrast for anything, you need to mention both sides to actually get 2 marks. If you just mention one side, you're still going to get 0. So you either get 0 or 2 marks. So you always have to mention both sides. The contrast we have here is between the blind man's vulnerability, so broosheid is vulnerability, that we get in lines 22 and 23. He says he wants to die, he wants to rest, and the only way he can rest is when he dies. And we kind of contrast that to the harshness of the totsie, where he just like cleans his throat and he spits. Geldklingel in die blikkie en lê dan stil. So it just says like money sort of like falls into the can and then it's still. So klingels klank na bootsing, iemand gee vir die man geld, so it's onomatopoeic, someone's giving the man money. Die duiwe koer en 'n kindjie heel, so just saying the pigeons are making their sound, which is koer koer, and a child is like playing somewhere. So koer is klank na bootsing, it's the sound a pigeon makes. En heel is klank na bootsing en kontras. So letterlik, miskien 'n kind wat naby speel. So literally it might be like the hearing a child playing somewhere close by. Figuurlik, miskien 'n kind in die bedelaar wat nou opgewonde is want daar het geld ingekom. So figuratively it could possibly mean that the child within, like, you know, the beggar, the child that's always been there, is actually quite happy now because they actually got some money. Contrast versies 22 en 23 teenoor 26. So the contrast is between line 22 and 23 where blind man basically wished that he was dead. Contrast it to line 26 where like the child within him is actually happy because now he got some money, and this means that the totsie won't leave him there and will actually take him back to where he sleeps. Mummy, hy's blind. Piep 'n dogtertjie sag. So mummy, he's blind. Girl says quietly or softly. Direkte woorde van dogtertjie, sy voel jammer vir die bedelaar, so it's the direct words of like a small girl, and she feels sorry for the beggar. So piep is klank na bootsing, sy sê dit baie sag, so piep is onomatopoeia, she says it very like softly. Hy draai sy kop skuins en hy wag, so he turns his head to the side and he waits. Hy wag om te hoor of hy geld gaan kry. So at this point he's waiting to see if maybe he's going to get money, because obviously remember he's relying on his sense of hearing to realize if he got money or not. Hier is nog 10 rand, sê die vrou. Koop vir jou iets om aan te kou. So it says here's 10 rand, says the woman. Buy something to chew. So these 2 lines, direkte woorde van die vrou. Sy weet hy is blind, so sy sê vir hom hoeveel geld sy vir hom gee. Sy kry hom jammer en sê dat hy vir hom iets moet koop om te eet. So it just says here that the woman, like, it's the direct words of this woman, and she obviously like can see that he's blind, so she actually tells him, I'm giving you a 10 rand note. And she tells him specifically what he should buy with that. She says, buy something to eat, because she can see that he is hungry. Die verkeerslig blik en hy hou aan met wag, so the traffic light clicks and he keeps on waiting. So klank na bootsing, hy wag hoopvol vir nog geld, so it's onomatopoeia, and he's like waiting hopefully for more money. Die totsie pluk hom aan sy seer arm en lag. So the totsie like grabs him by his sore arm and laughs. So the whole line 32, ironie, geld gaan nie vir kos gaan nie, maar moontlik vir drank vir die totsie. So the irony we can find in this is that even though the woman said use this to buy food, we know there's a big possibility, because in some of the previous stanzas they mentioned that the totsie's breath smells like beer, that there's a chance that the totsie is going to use this money on alcohol and not food. So pluk hom aan sy seer arm, so grabs him by his sore arm. Die totsie mishandel die blinde man, sy seer lyf word beklemtoon. So once again, like, the totsie is very rough with this blind man, and although this blind man's body is so sore from previous days begging, the totsie just doesn't care at all. And by emphasizing like sy seer arm, his sore arm, they're emphasizing the pain and discomfort that he has in his body. So lag, dui op die totsie se ongevoeligheid. So this just indicates towards like the sort of totsie not really feeling anything for the blind man, because he laughs when they get money. And he might also be laughing because although the woman said use it for food, the totsie knows he's not going to use it for food. So yeah, that's the end of the poem, and now we're just going to look at a few general things. So tema, 'n mens is dikwels aan ander mense se genade oorgelewer. So the theme, although I would also say like the theme is like poverty as well, what it also is sort of is that you are usually subjected to other people's good intentions or bad intentions. And in this case, it would be the blind man. That, this person who's leading him could have been like a really good person and helped the blind man, but the guy chose not to. The guy chose to abuse this blind man. Stemming, neerdrukkend, somber hartseer. So like the tone of the poem is just that it's sort of very like depressing and it's somber and it's quite sad. Sintuiglike waarneming. Die blinde man neem alles waar met sy ander sintuie, hoor, ruik, voel, proe, en so kan die leser moontlik beter verstaan hoe die man voel en hoe hy sy wêreld ervaar. Die blinde man maak sin uit sy donker wêreld deur na klanke en geluide te luister. So it just says like throughout this poem we had a lot of things being experienced, obviously using the other senses except sight. And it just says, yeah, like I think what this poem does really well is by using these other senses, it does almost give us the opportunity to somewhat understand what this man's going through. I mean, like, I don't think it would ever happen completely, but it does help us to sort of understand like the blind man's world and how he experiences the world. And it's because in the poem they use the other senses to describe things that are happening to him. And then progressie. So remember at the beginning we spoke about progression of the day. This is just progression within the tsotsi. Okay? Die tsotsi se gedrag verander vanaf nors na vriendelik omdat die blinde man geld, 10 rand en strofe 8 kry. So it just says at the beginning of the poem that Tsotsi is quite mean and, I mean, he's still mean towards the end, but he's quite grumpy. And when the blind man gets money and he gets 10 rand, which is obviously quite a lot, we sort of get this progression in the Tsotsi that Tsotsi is now happy because he's going to take the money, he's going to spend it on himself. Okay, everyone, so that's the end of this poem. I hope it helps you, and good luck with prelims for those of you writing. And yeah, I'll try to upload the other things soon. I'm just having some problems with the fiber where I live. So yeah, anyway, tot ziens allemaal.